All right, let's talk about something that feels like it's jumped straight out of a movie and into real-world, multi-million-dollar labs. De-extinction. The idea of bringing back species like the woolly mammoth or the dodo? Well, it's not just a fantasy anymore. It's happening, and it's forcing us to ask some really, really big questions. And this quote from futurist Stuart Brand, it just perfectly sums up the why behind all of this. For a lot of the scientists and investors pouring money into this, it's not just some cool science experiment. They see it as a moral duty, a chance to maybe, just maybe, undo some of the damage we've done.
But that's the big question, right? It's this noble goal clashing with a whole mess of scientific, ethical, and real world problems. It really all boils down to that classic line: just because we can do something, does it actually mean we should? Okay, so to even start answering that, we've got to get one thing straight: how this stuff actually works. And step one is to completely forget the Hollywood version. Seriously, this is not about finding a mosquito trapped in amber. And this right here is the key difference you need to understand. The myth is all about making a perfect, 100% identical clone. But the reality, it's way more complicated. We're talking about gene editing to create what scientists call a proxy, or a hybrid. It's not an exact copy. It's something totally new, built using the blueprint of its closest living relative. So what is a proxy species? Well, think of it this way. Scientists aren't making a carbon copy woolly mammoth. What they're actually doing is taking an Asian elephant and tweaking its DNA. They're using gene editing to add in mammoth traits, things like shaggy hair, a super thick layer of body fat, and even special blood that works better in the cold. The goal isn't a perfect replica. It's to create a kind of cold weather elephant that can do the same job in the ecosystem that the mammoth used to do. And the process itself is pretty wild. It's kind of like this incredible three-step dance with DNA. First, they have to piece together ancient, shattered bits of DNA from old bones or tusks. Then, they map that against the DNA of its closest living cousin, say the mammoth versus the elephant, to find the exact genes that made them different. And finally, using this amazing tool called CRISPR, they go in and surgically edit the living animal's DNA, swapping in those ancient genes. But, and this is a big but, there's a major roadblock, and it all comes down to basic chemistry. DNA isn't forever. It turns out it has a half-life of 521 years. What that means is that every 521 years, about half of the genetic information in a sample just falls apart. It decays. So what does that mean for, the big one? Dinosaurs? Well, they died out 65 million years ago. After all that time, there is literally nothing left to work with. Zero. So let's just rip the Band-Aid off. Bringing back a T-Rex is, and always will be, completely impossible. So if we can't have Jurassic Park, why even bother with mammoths or Tasmanian tigers? Well, the real argument for de-extinction isn't about having a cool new zoo animal. It's about trying to restore entire ecosystems. I mean, the vision here is just massive. The dream is that a new herd of mammoths could completely re-engineer the Arctic tundra. By trampling down snow and helping grasslands grow, they could literally keep the permafrost frozen, which would be a huge deal for fighting climate change. Or take the thylacine, the Tasmanian tiger. Bringing it back could restore balance to Tasmania's ecosystem by controlling invasive species. And the passenger pigeon? Its massive flocks used to churn up the forest floor, a vital process that's been missing for over 100 years. See? It's about function, not just form. Okay, that all sounds amazing, right? A powerful tool to heal the planet. But the reality is way, way more complicated. The hidden costs, the unintended consequences, this is where the whole idea gets really, really tricky. This chart right here tells a really powerful story about the money. One major study looked at this exact question, and the results were stark. The incredible amount of money it would take to bring back and manage just one extinct species is enough to save at least 3 currently endangered species from disappearing forever. So you're basically forced to choose, and bringing one back could mean letting several others go. And even if we pull it off, what have we actually made? Well, some ecologists have a pretty chilling name for it: a zombie species. Think about it. It's an animal that's technically alive, but it's brought back into a world that's totally changed, and in such tiny numbers that it can't do its original job. A few mammoths wandering around a park aren't healing the tundra. They're basically just a tourist attraction. And the risks, they just keep stacking up. First off, you're essentially creating a brand new invasive species, and you have no idea how it's going to behave. It could get wiped out by modern diseases that it has zero immunity to. Then you have to think about the incredible suffering of the surrogate mothers in a process that is guaranteed to have a high failure rate. And maybe the biggest ethical question of all, the lonely individual. Who teaches a mammoth that was born in a lab how to actually be a mammoth in the wild?
So where does all this leave us? Well, with all these huge arguments on both sides, the conversation is starting to change. People are realizing de-extinction isn't some magic cure for extinction. Instead, it's a new, powerful, and honestly pretty dangerous tool in the conservation toolbox.
This table gives you a fantastic reality check on the 3 biggest projects, and you can see the monumental challenges each one faces. For the mammoth, they have to figure out an artificial womb for a nearly 2-year pregnancy. For the thylacine, it's the absolutely mind-boggling problem of having a tiny, mouse-sized animal give birth to a wolf-sized baby. And for the dodo, it's about cracking the code of avian reproduction, which is incredibly complex. These are not small problems. But here's the thing. Out of all this super controversial research, something incredibly valuable is emerging. Even if bringing back the dead is a fraught idea, the technology itself is priceless. This ability to edit genomes could be used for something called genetic rescue, basically helping species that are still alive. We could boost their genetic diversity, help them fight off diseases, and maybe even adapt to a changing climate. And that might be the real prize here. And that really brings us full circle, back to the fundamental dilemma which Dr. Joseph Bennett just nails with this quote. It's a choice. It's an ethical decision. Every $1 million spent trying to bring back the mammoth is $1 million that's not being spent to save the elephants, the rhinos, and countless other species that are on the brink right now. At the end of the day, this whole de-extinction debate forces us to look in the mirror. As we get these almost godlike powers to edit and rewrite life itself, we have to decide what our priority is. Is it about the spectacular dream of restoring the past? Or is it about the hard, urgent, and necessary work of protecting what we have left? That's the choice that's going to define the future of life on this planet.